It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. And we begin with all that concerns today, June 12th, as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has called off the presidential national broadcast on June 12th, earlier scheduled for 7 a.m. That would have been this morning. The nationwide address was one of the activities lined up to mark Democracy Day. The Director, Information and Public Relations Office of Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Seun said in the statement that the cancellation was because the president was also scheduled to attend the National Assembly joint session the same day. He said President Tinubu will deliver his address from the National Assembly. According to the statement, all other plans remained in order as announced earlier. Now, no president governs in isolation. The weight of leadership is often shared quietly but powerfully by those within the inner circle. Behind every decision, policy direction, and public remark lies a network of advisors, allies, confidants, and power brokers whose counsel and influence help to shape the course of leadership. These individuals, whether appointed officials, long-time political associates, or behind-the-scenes strategists, serve as extensions of the presidency, guiding thinking, framing options, and in some cases, wielding as much sway as the leader himself. In both formal and informal roles, they form the inner circle that often defines not just the style of governance, but the substance of power. In Nigeria, in the dynamic landscape of the country's politics, a few figures have commanded as much reach in terms of knitting alliances as President Bola Tinubu, whose rise to and sustenance in power is not only shaped by his own ambitions, but also by a close circle of powerful allies, family, and advisors. On the list includes notable names like First Lady Oluremi Tinubu, his son Seyi Tinubu, Vice President Kashim Shettima, Wale Tinubu, Boyega Oyetola, Godswill Akpabio, Dele Alake, Yemi Cardoso, Nuhu Ribadu, Dave Umahi, just to mention a few. Well, this is a feature on the front page today of This Day newspaper, looking at the personalities that the president has surrounded himself with that are reportedly, by this day, influencing his decision-making and his overall strategy. Rufai, your take?
First, I'll talk about June 12th and what it means to me before I talk about other stories. June 12th is a symbolic day. It is the day that a man won elections that were free and fair. And his mandate was taken away by state capture. His mandate was taken away by people that had other plans. His quest for that mandate led to his death. But the shocking thing is, since June 12th happened, has Nigeria learned any lesson? No. We keep moving around in circles. The heroes then have the chance at government now. What have they done to really go back to that MQ Abiola's mantra of farewell to poverty? The facts are there, more people are being plunged into poverty every day. There's pain. Many years ago, during June 12th, as a journalist, you feared for your life. The right to be able to express thoughts and opinion was stifled. Today, yes, you will argue that there's been some gains in democracy. But hiring journalists not still be taken in by the security forces because of cybersecurity laws, even when they put rejoinders out for story. I have had to intervene in some cases against journalists. And that's the society we find ourselves. There's been a stifling of voices. The beauty of democracy is to be able to embrace all. We've had some successes in the economy, but it doesn't trickle down to the people that need them. I mean, some successes is when you look at parameters for people like World Bank, that they've always mooted the idea of removal of subsidies and the likes. And when you look at it, yes, we've done that, but it has come with a lot of pain and thrown people into penury. So June 12th today, can we truly say that Nigeria is where it ought to be? can we truly say we have put behind the ghost of June 12th and attempts at revisionism? Because recently, the wife of a dramatis personae in June 12th actually came out defending her husband. But what she also forgot to say was people that were shot under her husband's regime. People that were mauled in Lagos while they were protesting. People that were brutalized, that had to flee the country and have told their stories. What she fails to talk about is the gulags where people were kept. What she also fails to talk about is the pain and penury a lot of people feel. So I see every attempt at revisionism. Secondly, the president's men. Yes, he will have a lot of people around him. Some of them lifelong friends. Some of them friends when he was governor in Lagos. Some of them acquaintances. But the question is, what's the impact in the outlook of Nigerians? That's the question we should ask. Did some of these friends tell the president that it's an aberration to the Constitution when he declared a state of emergency because there was a squabble between Godfather and Godson? Did some of them tell the president the hunger and the avarice people are facing on the streets with heightened level of inflation? Did some of them tell the president about the state of pain and penury and economic stagnation of the people? Did some of them have frank talk with the president about the state of insecurity and heightened level of loss of life in the country? So, as we celebrate these people, the question we also ask is, what are the quality of conversations that they're having with the president? Because for every king, there will be counselors. And it's incumbent on the president and the counselors to do well for the people of the country. Happy democracy day, Mr. President. A lot of promises still pending, and we just hope you'll take us to the promised land. But we'll hold you accountable.
Okay, today is June 12, 26 years after the return to democracy, years after the annulment of the June 12, 1993 election. The June 12, 1993 election in Nigeria was considered the freest and the fairest. It was an election in which you had two major contestants, MK Abiola and Babagana Kingibe of the Social Democratic Party, and also on the other side, a man known as Bashir Tofa from Kanu State. And that election was conducted on that day. I was a participant in that election. As it turned out, that election was eventually annulled. And that election significantly changed the course of Nigerian history in the same manner that, other developments like the killing of Ken Saro-Wiwa also affected the course of Nigerian history. On that occasion, June 12, 1993, Nigerians voted for a Muslim ticket. They decided that the issue was not about Muslim or about region, but about the objectives of progress in Nigeria. MK Abiola preached to Nigerians the philosophy, the ideology of farewell to poverty. And Nigerians sang in unison, MKO is our man, oh, and they voted for him. But the military junta, led by President Ibrahim Babangida, self-described, self-styled, decided to annul that election. President Babangida has since written a biography in which he says he's not the one, it's other people and all that. Abacha's family has since come forward to say that it is not Abacha's General Abacha, it is other people. They've been trading blames many years after. But today, Nigerians remember June 12, 1993. I think it's an important thing by way of tradition, because I've always made the point that you cannot build a nation without memory. Memory is a category in itself in cultural politics, in cultural studies. When nations build memories, they also educate the citizenry. In other words, memorialization is an academic category. Ordinary people may not understand it. But that, to the extent that President Muhammadu Buhari decided that June 12 should be archived, should be isolated for proper reflection year to year, I think it's probably one of the best legacies that President Muhammadu Buhari left behind. And here we are on the occasion of June 12, and we are talking about the symbolism of that occasion. I go straight to the next point, which is about the heroism of the people who sacrificed their lives, who suffered so that Nigeria could get to this point. People like Frank Kokori, people like Wole Soyinka, he is still alive, may he live longer, may he live long, which is Nanekon, Chief Abraham Adesanya, Chief Alfred Rewane, Theodore Makins, Joe and her husband, Yinka Odumakin, now of blessed memory, journalists, Akande Shokon, Takpolorun Yomi, whose 1-week-old baby was even abducted by the Abacha government, and whose wife was maltreated by the Abacha government. Bagada Kato, who lost his life, Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, Chief Bola Ige, Ulisa Agbakoba, you all know Ulisa Agbakoba, Kudirat Abiola, the wife of Chief MKO Abiola, who in fact, as a matter of the process, lost his life in that process. Beko Ransom Kuti. Ebichu Ukwe has a park named after him somewhere around the Lagos Secretariat in Alausa. It was not because he was a commodore in the Navy. It was because of his commitment to military stroke.
I'm sure you wanted to say Undubisi Kanu.
Is it Undubisi Kanu? Okay, there was Undubisi Kanu also. There was also Commodore Ebichu Ukwe. These were persons who were involved, in that particular struggle. Chief Anthony Enahoro. These are the heroes. I know that Joe Igbokwe has written a book on the heroes of June 12. I do not want to repeat it. Chief Wale Oshun has also written a book on the whole of that process. So June 12 is a very significant day. It's a day when we remember heroes. It is also a day when we should remember villains. All the people who were involved in ABN, Abacha for whatever Nigeria, whatever they called it. These were people who were the villains. There were people who were benefiting. There were people who were spitting, urinating on MKO Abiola's grave. So as we celebrate June 12, we should also remember those kurukere, villainous characters in Nigerian history. And their families should be remembered for shame forever. There was Abimbola Davis. That was a character that was leading ABN. There was a Kanu, a certain Kanu, who left Nigerian youth yam for Abacha. Yeah, whatever it was called at that time. In other words, what I think is important about today, this occasion, is that it's a moment for reflection for Nigerians. It's a moment not necessarily for celebration, but for reflection. Now, I have a lot more to say about this. I can publish a whole book on June 12th because I monitor the process step by step. But that will be a story for another day. The other story that you pointed out, what was that about now? About the people who are shaping the process in Nigeria. Look, there's something in political science that is called the politics of proximity. Most of the people celebrated, I guess you were referring to the front page of This Day Today. Most of the people that were celebrated there, either they are family members, or they are called advisors, or they are called influential leaders, whatever name they may have been called. There's something called the politics of proximity. And the name that I remember is a book by Geronimo Cortina. Geronimo Cortina has written a book on the politics of proximity. It talks about your distance from power. Now, when we talk in the theory about distance from power, is that the closer you are to power, the more influential you are. So if you categorize as journalists, ordinary journalists, you talk about, influential leaders. If you are family members, yes, you will be influential. It is only natural that Seun Tinubu will have access to his father, that Senator Remi Tinubu will have access to her husband, that other members of the family will have, access to their father. If we talk about what other category do they have there? Inner circle. Yeah, if you are friends of a man in power, the politics of proximity tells us that the distance between the people and the man of power will be, shorter. So you have access to him, you'll be able, there's something they call Wole Soyinka in Kongi service, called the eyes and the ears of the man of power. So if you are within that loop, you have the ears and the ears of the man of power. So if you say, friends, people like Chief Segun Oshoba, Tinubu is not going to abandon them because he's president. He's not going to abandon Chief Oludoyin because he's president. He's not going to abandon people they've grown up together because he's president. So these are the eyes and the ears of the president, to use Wole Soyinka's expression. Now, people who are called advisors, key advisors, policy coordination person, Bala Usman, when she have access to the president, Christopher Musa, the chief of army staff, of course, you need your army staff. You will need your national security advisor, Nuhu Ribadu. You will need your minister of finance. You will need, who else is there? Your central bank governor. So, what summarizes this for me is about the politics of proximity, which is a subject in culturology, it's a subject in political science. The closer you are, to power, the more influential you are. Nyesom Wike was also mentioned as one of the persons close to power. He controls the Federal Capital Territory. He has just spent 39 billion to build, to renovate an international conference center. He could have used that 39 billion to build a new center. And they will have named it Wike Remi Tinubu, Bola Tinubu Conference Center. 39 billion. For a conference that was built for 240 million by President Babangida. So this is the politics about proximity. When you are close to power, you will do what you like. And everybody going into coalition, they are looking to get closer to power. Don't be surprised if tomorrow you have people from around here, this table, also saying, if President Tinubu needs my services, I'll be available. Because political science, political ideology is about proximity. Cortina tells us in his book of the same title, Politics of Proximity.
Well, in this conversation about politics of proximity, I hope that we can remember that as much as these are appointees and friends, well-wishers, advisors to the presidency, that the duty is to serve Nigeria, not to serve an individual. And for me, that's the key takeaway here. Is as we go through the list, it's important for us to ask ourselves, what contribution have some of these individuals made to the greater good, the public good of Nigeria? Because it's no use having the president's ear if it's for personal benefit, if it's for personal advancement. So as we go through this list, I think this is an opportunity for Nigerians to go through the list and do an assessment themselves and find out whether these people, in each of their individual capacities, based off of their past records, have been people who have contributed towards the good and the growth of Nigeria. You have people like Aliko Dangote on that list. You have, I saw Tony Elumelu is on that list. I saw there are industrialists on that list who have undoubtedly contributed. They're employers in Nigeria. There are people who are contributing to the economy and to the GDP. But so I think let's all, take a look at this pick from this day newspaper and make our own assessments. Because if you tell me who your friends are, then I'll know who you are. Based off of our assessment of this inner circle advisors and so forth, we'll be able to get somewhat of a good assessment of what the next couple of years have in store for us, and also get a better understanding of where we're coming from in the past 2 years. However, today is June 12th, and that's the focus. Now, I have mixed feelings about some of the new developments that might mark the way we commemorate June 12th. For example, the president's morning broadcast today which has become a tradition, has been moved as the president will address us from a joint session of the National Assembly. There will be no parade. On one breath, we would say that's a good thing because we're saving money, and today is not really a day for pomp and pageantry. But on the other, in another breath, I ask myself, I hope we're not doing things that will unintentionally remove the commemorative events of these people, of this day from the people. We cannot turn this into somewhat of an elite gathering where we're speaking to ourselves, because today is, to me specifically, supposed to be about the young people, and the young people getting to learn the history of June 12th, the significance, and becoming emotionally attached to the historical relevance of this day. I found it quite significant that in the past commemorative ceremony for the Rwanda genocide, one of the army spokesmen delivered a lecture called Modern Denial by Propagandists Abroad, exploring how the youth can contribute to being agents of truth and influence global perceptions of the genocide against the Tutsis. Now take the genocide out of it, and let's take a look at the fact that we are now seeing so many versions, reversions, reworked versions of what transpired on this day in history. And it's very important for us to ensure that this day is kept in an honorable way, in an honorary way, that it becomes a day that transfers history. It is a sacred day that is supposed to ensure that the citizens buy into the significance of what happened on this day and ensure that the events that transpired in the days following the June 12th election are not repeated.